To me, more than the Bengals change, the change that gets me more is the Bills. Because the Bills, again, took something totally fun and then ruined it by making the Buffalo appear to run. You know, they made it moving and a line going through it. And the great thing about the old Bills uniform, OJ's Bills, right, was that it was a sports team with a big, fat, sedentary animal.
Big, fat, sedentary animal.
As its motto, or not as its motto, as its whatever logo. Thank you. And that Bill just standing there, like, I'm not running. Why would I run?
Yeah.
The grass is right here. Or that buffalo, yeah.
This may surprise some of you, but I am actually a TYT member. I got it when I was actually a fan, and it was one of those things that I just forgot about for a long time, only to rediscover it later. I'm glad that I never canceled it, since it's been extremely useful to me, in more ways than one. Above all, it's illuminating. You get to see what Jank, Anna, John, and everyone else are like when they think only friendly eyes are watching. There are some rare moments of clarity and self-awareness.
I just want to be able to fly first class, because I'm too fat for coach.
But for the most part, they are completely deluded. For example, did you know that Jank actually thinks he won his debate with Ben Shapiro?
I pummeled D'Souza and Coulter, and I would argue Shapiro, but his guys would go, hey, so you'll say,
But the thing about Shapiro, you can't tell because he just keeps he's got his tactics, and it's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Probably the most important thing I've learned about them, though, is that they are true believers. They are zealots of the left. What they present on the show is what they genuinely think. There's no put on whatsoever. Practically speaking, what that means is the folks at TYT don't think they have genuine detractors. The only way it's acceptable to disagree with them is to disagree with them from the left, sometimes the really far left.
Well, yeah, he has everyone that ranges from Bernie Sanders to Slavoj Žižek. And Žižek is a communist. He's not even a communist. He's a Marxist. He's a Stalinist, I guess. He's a Marxist-Leninist. So that's a really obviously anyone who is a part of the American right will look at that statement and go, what? So what's the difference? One's a socialist and the other one's a socialist. I don't understand, but there's a big difference between the two. I think that's a testament to what we should be doing on the left more.
That's the only type of ideological diversity they think is legitimate. Outside of this extremely narrow view of the political spectrum, there are only two types of people. Bad actors who are motivated by greed, malice, racism, status, or some other nefarious thing, and the people who are fooled by these bad actors. As far as the latter group is concerned, this is why Jank and everyone else is constantly going on and on about money and politics. You see, were it not for all these campaign donations that allow people to run advertisements, the unwashed masses would all vote progressive. However, since non-progressives are allowed to engage in their constitutionally protected speech, regular people are constantly getting fooled into voting against their best interests.
Again, we have a chunk of the population here that continuously votes against their best interests. And we have to get to the bottom of why that is. Why is that happening? I mean, obviously there's misinformation, they're being misled, they're being manipulated. And it's frustrating because you try to give evidence and provide information about what's really going on to look out for them. And they reject it as elitist propaganda. And it's like, no, what you've bought into is the propaganda.
Well, part of the problem is that progressives actually care about Americans.
It couldn't possibly be that these people have different values, different priorities, different ideas on what their relationship should be with their government. It's that they are rubes who don't know what's good for them. It would honestly be less insulting to just call these people stupid. Now, what about the bad actors? Again, since the acceptable range of opinion at TYT runs the range from Sam Seder to Jimmy Dore, even other people on the left are frequently accused of being corrupt. Listen to what Jank said about the people at Common Cause, an organization that also wants to get money out of politics, but merely disagrees on matters of strategy.
I remember when a so-called progressive organization, I don't even want to give them that title. I'll tell you who it is because I'm going over the top today. It's Common Cause. They're a sellout organization in Washington, D.C. And they get so mad when I say that. And they do other good work. I can't help but be goddamn fair, right? But on the issue of money and politics, they block change more than any right-wing organization, more than any other organization on the planet.
Of course, the majority of their vitriol is reserved for people on the right. There are some people who are apparently so toxic because of their politics that merely associating with them is going too far.
As frustrating as it gets, there's still a level of folks within that say the right things on TV, but then he kind of still had fun playing basketball with Ted Cruz. And he's like, oh, well, I lost. He's actually a nice guy when we play basketball together. There was too much, and maybe I'm bitter, there's too much camaraderie there.
Of course, it goes without saying that Cenk and company believe that right-wing politics exist purely to serve the interests of corporations and rich people.
So your whole career is based on bribery, and now you turn around and say, but wait a minute, these aren't big corporate interests. These aren't super PACs. This is just regular Americans getting involved in politics. Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
So why do they think this way? It's because they genuinely don't understand their opposition, and they're hardly unique in that. As Jonathan Haidt wrote in his incredibly important book, The Righteous Mind,
in a study I did with Jesse Graham and Brian Nosek, we tested how well liberals and conservatives could understand each other. We asked more than 2,000 American visitors to fill out the Moral Foundation's questionnaire. 1/3 of the time, they were asked to fill it out normally, answering as themselves. 1/3 of the time, they were asked to fill it out as they think a typical liberal would respond. 1/3 of the time, they were asked to fill it out as a typical conservative would respond. This design allowed us to examine the stereotypes that each side held about the other. More important, it allowed us to assess how accurate they were by comparing people's expectations about typical partisans to the actual responses from partisans on the left and the right. Who was best able to pretend to be the other? The results were clear and consistent. Moderates and conservatives were most accurate in their predictions, whether they were pretending to be liberals or conservatives. Liberals were the least accurate, especially those who described themselves as very liberal.
So when Cenk says this,
remember, right-wingers have no empathy, so they don't. It doesn't directly affect them, they don't care at all.
He gets it almost exactly backwards. Conservatives understand liberals, but liberals don't get conservatives. We don't know why this really is, but I suspect it has something to do with the fact that important institutions like the media, the entertainment industry, and the academy are largely controlled by people who are left of center. So, if you live in the United States as a conservative, you are regularly exposed to liberal ideas, whereas the corollary doesn't necessarily hold. I believe that liberals are perfectly capable of understanding conservatives. It's just that some people, like the Young Turks, already have it in their minds that conservatism is evil by definition. Hence they think they have nothing to learn. For example, observe how Cenk danced on the grave of the conservative magazine, The Weekly Standard.
The Weekly Standard is a very conservative magazine. In fact, it's mainly known as a neoconservative publication. They're the folks that led us into the Iraq War. The founders are people like John Podortz, Bill Kristol, Fred Barnes. And so these are all neocons, all warmongers. And today we celebrate its demise. It has been shut down and no longer exists. Now, I'm going to show you how irrelevant it was as well. But first, let's be amused at the reaction of one of its original co-founders, John Podortz. He went nuts over it today.
So, the Weekly Standard is completely irrelevant, yet powerful enough to serve as propaganda for the rich and lead us into the Iraq War. Okay, but that's not even the best part here.
I told you all along, and if you've been watching the Young Turks for a while, we talked about the Weekly Standard because it did such terrible propaganda within Washington, terrible in its consequences, but unfortunately it worked. And I told you, it's just propaganda. It never makes any money. They don't actually believe in capitalism. And in his anger, Podortz accidentally admitted it. So he said, quote, "To be sure, it has never made money. Magazines like it never make money." That is exactly right.
It says Commentary Magazine editor.
Yes, that's right. John Podortz runs Commentary Magazine, which is a magazine like the Weekly Standard. They never make money. So wait, what happened to living like a capitalist every day? No, it's propaganda for the rich. That's why they finance it. And he further clarified it. He said, within the giant corporations run by the wealthy men who started the Standard and then bought it, Rupert Murdoch and Anschutz, its annual losses were a rounding error akin to the budget for the catering on one of their blockbuster movie productions. In other words, I want more welfare. Yeah. Why wouldn't they give me more corporate welfare? So why did they lose money, knowing that they were never, ever going to make money on it? Because they wanted to do marketing for their war, on which they would make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that's how conservative media works. When on the left side, no, it's capitalism all the way. You've got to make money, and you got to, and otherwise they will shut you down immediately. On the right wing, it's gobs of money for propaganda. Money? You don't have to make money. We're making money off the tax cuts, off the deregulation, off the wars. You're just a puppet for us. Yeah. And Podortz being like shocked and chagrined that he turns out to be the puppet is hilarious.
Except that's not true. The Weekly Standard operated by the business model that any intellectual magazine or website does. Left-wing magazines like The Nation and The New Republic have never made money, nor has the website The Intercept. And Cenk knows this.
Now, finally, you might say, well, look, The Intercept works and they do great investigative reporting. They're backed by a billionaire. They can't.
Who are they backed by? I didn't even know that.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No.
Omidyar. Yeah, Piero Omidyar, the founder of eBay. So he's a great progressive, and thank God he put $250 million into The Intercept.
Jeez.
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah. Even them, I think, not anymore. But thank God Omidyar did that, and thank God The Intercept exists. But without that kind of benefactor, it wouldn't be around.
So what's the difference? There is none, aside from their politics. If a rich conservative funds a right-wing outlet, Cenk thinks that publication serves only as propaganda to advance the evil benefactor's financial interests. His evidence for their bad intent is that they have conservative politics. But if a rich progressive funds a left-wing outlet, that outlet serves the interests of the people and the benefactor is performing a public service. And his evidence for their good intentions is the fact that they have progressive politics. Progressives are good and everyone else is bad.
Progressives, unlike conservatives, care about other people.
I think that reasonable people across the political spectrum can see through this sort of intellectual dishonesty. For what it's worth, I largely don't share the politics of the Weekly Standard, but I am sad to see it go out of business. I certainly don't share the politics of The Nation magazine, but I still don't want to see them go out of business either. These outlets actually do some real journalism from time to time, and I feel it's a sign of a healthy society that we have publications that span the political spectrum. I don't even want to see the Young Turks go out of business, which is actually a very real possibility.
So digital media is in massive trouble. Massive trouble. The fact that we have survived is near miraculous.